Right now, the web page for the JProp shop looks like this. It contains a header, footer, and topics with paragraphs of text, a bulleted list, and a block quote. The design of the web page is supposed to look like this flyer. Although the web page contains most of the same content as the flyer, it uses the browser's internal style sheet to render the page. To change the appearance of the page, you need to substitute your own style sheet for the browser's internal one. To write a style sheet, you use the Cascading Style Sheet, or CSS, language. Like HTML files, CSS files are text files that you can create and edit using a simple text editor. The difference is that a style sheet file has the .css file name extension. For example, the style sheet for the JProp shop web page is named jpsstyles.css. To apply an external style sheet to a web page, you create a link to the style sheet file in the document head. To do so, you use the link element, which has the syntax shown here. Start with the element name, link, and then include an href attribute. The href attribute contains the reference to the linked file. File is the file name and location of the style sheet file, such as jpsstyles.css. Enclose the file name and location in quotation marks. In this case, the jpsstyles.css file is stored in the same folder as the jprop.htm file, so you don't need to specify the folder, just the file name. The rel attribute indicates that the specified file is an external style sheet, and the type attribute indicates the style sheet language, which is CSS in this case. To attach the jpsstyles.css style sheet to the JProp web page, open the jprop.htm file in your text editor. In the head element, add the link element, as shown here. When you save your changes and display the page in a browser, the browser uses the styles defined in the jpsstyles.css external style sheet when it loads the page, instead of the styles in its internal style sheet. Using the style sheet, the JProp web page is easier to read. The page is displayed in a two-column layout with the main content of the section element displayed on the left. The content of the aside element is shown as a sidebar on the right, with a light purple background, rounded corners, and a drop shadow. The content of the footer element is styled with a smaller font, top borderline, and a light purple background. The section, aside, and footer elements are new HTML5 elements that were not part of earlier HTML specifications. Most browsers can render the page correctly, though Internet Explorer versions 8 and earlier do not recognize styles applied to HTML5 elements. The web page in Internet Explorer 8 displays few of the styles shown in the latest version of Internet Explorer. To solve this problem, you can run a script, an external program linked to a web page. To create a script, you can use JavaScript, the most popular programming language for writing web script files. Like HTML and CSS files, JavaScript files are text files that require no special software other than a web browser to run. A JavaScript file named Modernizer 1.5 has already been created to display HTML5 elements in older browsers. Modernizer is a free, open-source JavaScript file that provides support for many HTML5 elements and for the newest CSS styles. To link a web page to a JavaScript file, you add the script element to the document head using the syntax shown here. In the syntax, file is the name of the JavaScript file in quotation marks, such as Modernizer 1.5.js. This file is stored in the same folder as the jprop.htm file, so you don't need to specify the location. When you add the script element to the document head and then display the document in Internet Explorer 8, the web page uses the page layout and many formats displayed in later browsers. However, IE8 does not support rounded corners and drop shadows, so the sidebar looks different. Keep in mind that browsers vary in how they render web pages, especially when using the newest HTML5 and CSS styles. You have to test your page using multiple browsers and devices to make sure that any differences in format or layout don't affect your user's ability to read and understand your web page. Now you know how to link to an external style sheet to control the appearance of a web page, and link to a JavaScript file to display the newest HTML5 elements and CSS styles in older browsers. In this video, you'll learn how to insert an inline image on a web page for the JProp shop. This web page for the JProp shop displays the company name at the top of the page. To make this web page more visually appealing, you could replace the name of the company with an image of the company logo. How do you do that in the HTML document for the web page, which is a simple text file? You can't insert the logo in the HTML file because the browser will ignore graphics and anything other than text when it renders the web page. Instead, you store the graphic as a separate file, such as this jpslogo.png image file, and include code in the HTML document that instructs the browser to display the image. This type of image is called an inline image, because you insert the code within a pair of heading or paragraph tags. You insert an inline image into a web page using the IMG element with the syntax shown here. Because the IMG element does not contain any textual content, it is considered an empty element and is marked with a one-sided tag, which encloses the element name, attributes, and then the closing slash in angle brackets. In the IMG element, the first attribute specifies the source of the image, where file is the name of the graphic image file, including the file name extension, such as jpslogo.png. The second attribute specifies the alternative text the browser should display if it cannot display the image file, such as the JProp shop. If the image file is stored in the same folder as the web page, you don't need to specify the drive and folders containing the file. When a browser processes an IMG element, it retrieves the image file, which is typically stored in the GIF, JPEG, or PNG format. The browser displays the image based on the dimensions of the image file itself. If you want to display the image using a different size,